Hi, my name is Kay. Today I want to show you how to use open forms in Vesselo to begin collecting inquiries for your commission art projects. I love this because it starts everything off in an organized way and makes it easy to respond to inquiries and process inquiries in a timely manner, but also without taking up too much energy or time on my part. So let's dive in. So the first thing I'm going to do is navigate on my screen to project components, and I'm going to click forms. And within forms, we have two options. We have project forms and open forms. Today, we're going to talk about open forms, which is a form that can be embedded on your website or shared with a link. As you can see, I already have two forms made, but I'll just walk you through making a new one. So you create form, and you have the form content on the right. Start by naming your form and then a small description. Now what you can do is build your form by selecting what you want to put in it over on the left here, and it will build it out. One thing I always like to ask people, for example, is this a gift? So I can start by creating this drop down. So I just have to click it and it adds it over here. And so in the drop down field title here, I'll say, is this a gift? And option 1 will be yes, and option 2 will be no. I don't need to add an other option. Okay. Another thing I always like to ask is, when does a client want this done by? Because sometimes people are looking for a specific, event. So I'll say, when would you like this completed by? And this is a date field here, but it's actually the due date field, which means that when it builds the project out of the form submission, it will put this date in the due date field. Same with the event date. If you're just looking for sort of an informational date that doesn't actually fill in any of your project information, then you can just use date picker. But for things that actually line up with fields in the project, event date or due date, you can use this and it will automatically coordinate that. And then I always like to say, tell me a little bit more. So I will use the text area and I'll say, please tell me more about your project. Okay, so I like all of that, and I feel like that's enough for me to know whether I can say yes or no to this project. And then what I'll do is go to form settings. And so this is an internal name. For a tag, we can add this watercolor project. It is not a pet portrait, it is a watercolor portrait. Submit button, you can change the text to say like start your portrait or something fun like that. Okay. After submission, you can decide what you want it to do. So you can have it show a success message. We've received it, we'll be back in touch with you, or you can actually redirect it to another URL. This is helpful if you're doing any sort of tracking with pixels or anything like that for conversions, but I'll just keep it on the success message for now. And then here you can choose your form's background color. So this is the color that will be behind the form. You can choose your submit button color and you can choose your font color. All of this is to make it so that you can embed this form into your website and make it cohesive with your current branding. So for fun, let's see here. You can also use this color picker here to select a color on your website page if you need to. That makes things kind of easy so you don't have to copy and paste. Okay, so that all looks good. I can then preview my form and see what it looks like. Okay, that all looks good, so I'll close that. Okay, I'm going to save the form. So now my form has been saved. It takes me back out to my list view, and I can view it and preview it to make sure I like the way it looks still, or remind myself what is in this form. Looks good. And so now what I can do is add it to my website or link to it. So when I click this button here, I can copy this to my clipboard, and that right there is a link that you could use on your social media, an email, anywhere you want if you don't want to deal with a website. And it will bring the person straight to the form like so. And then let's test it. Actually, let's do this. There we go. I'll select the option no. I'll say I want it by this date. And then I'll say start your portrait. It submits and it says, thank you, it's been received and we'll reach back out. But now within our Vesselo dashboard, we'll go to projects, and you can see that we have this new project here, this watercolor portrait inquiry form. Testing demo is the name I put in there. And so I can click into it and I can see the client information. So that's the name I put in, that's their email address. And then look, here's that due date. And if I want to read their answers, I go to my documents and I open up the response and I can see all of their information that they've submitted. So it's pretty handy. And then finally, let me just show you the way to put it into a website. So again, I'm going to click this button, open that up, and now I have this code here. If you have a Wix site, you'll want to use this code. In my website setup, I can just show you right here. I've put an HTML embed field into my website and then put the code in. So depending on who your website builder is, this should work with every website builder. And then what that actually looks like in practice is this. So this is what's currently live on my website, and we'll do another test. Let's put in an actual name so you guys can see how that works. If I want it by a specific date, it is not a gift. That's not a good. Let's go with Fido. All right, and we'll submit that. So now, again, we'll come back to our Vesselo dashboard, go to our projects, and you can see that we have a new pet portrait commission inquiry. It's in our notifications, and it's also in our project list with a red dot. Great. If this helped you to understand how to make the most out of your Vesselo account, please comment below. If you have any questions, comment below. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.